Welcome to Porsche Patter with Bracken Helms, the show where we hear Bracken and his distinguished guests from the Porsche community patter on about Porsches and all things automotive. Porsche Patter is sponsored by Circuit 64. Circuit 64 creates authentic automotive apparel made for like-minded automotive enthusiasts. The links for Circuit 64 are in the show notes. Okay, let's get to it.
John Benton, part 3 of 5. Before we get to John Benton, last week was Luftgekühlt, and it was epic. You wouldn't think I would be so excited about it, considering like 4 or 5 of my friends that I usually hang out with at Luftgekühlt couldn't make it, like emergencies. How unlucky was that? There was one guy and his son that I've hung out with at Luftgekühlt, the last one, and I was excited to see him. And so I thought, I'll see him again, because I just walked in. I'd only been there for like 20 minutes when I ran into him. And I thought, I'll see you again in like 30 minutes and we'll hang out. I didn't see him for the rest of the 2 days. That tells you how vast it was. I ran into so many people. It's so nice to see some of those people that that aren't like close friends, but you know because of the shows you go to and you catch back up. And I ran into a lot of people. Especially Saturday. Saturday was a lot more crowded than Sunday. Okay, now on this episode with John Benton, he talks about the struggles of being a business owner and something that I've heard from many people that, they work on Porsches and they start working on friends and then they get a business out of it. And they do it because they love the Porsche community. They love working on the cars. And before you know it, then you get bigger and you start getting the cutthroat clients that will literally murder you to save $5 here and $8 there, nickel and dime you. I mean, I've heard it from 3 or 4 different people that just went from like loving the little Porsche community, working on friends' cars to where the business took off and all of a sudden they're now dealing with clients from hell. And you hear it in this episode with John Benton. You'll also notice there's some shop noise in the back, but that's what happens when you're at a shop. It adds character. Okay, here's John Benton part 3.
So my next question was going to be, what attracted you to Porsche?
So having gotten to drive Porsches a couple times, it was obvious that they were superior cars as far as like handling and stuff, because I like to drive. It had all the appeal of a Volkswagen, the engine in the back, same smells and feels. But man, at speed, whole different ballgame. Like, when I was in my Ghia, at 105, the car got really light. And I considered putting ground, like maybe some stuff on it and stuff. But driving the 912 at 105 felt amazing, right? I knew I had to have one. It captured all the input that I wanted, like the sound, the feel. I knew that the engineers that developed Porsches got it. And they put that, that was present in their product, and I could feel it.
Yeah.
I was a dunce. I didn't know everything, but I could feel it. So I was totally drawn to it. And I was like, God damn, this thing's awesome. I even saw a Jag that day, a 12-cylinder Jag. I almost bought it. And on the way out, I saw the 912.
It has a name. You have a name for it?
912, yeah.
Why did you put 6.4 on it?
In 1968 at Le Mans, there was a privateer, French privateer, and he built a 911T to participate at Le Mans. And it was car number 64. It came in like 13th overall and second in class or some shit. But I have a little model I've had for years that I bought of that Le Mans car. I always like the story behind it. It's underdog, privateer, goes out, slays most of the field, car just spot on, basically stock. And just Porsche built something that could do that. It's a light ivory car like mine from the same era. My car for decades was just a white 912 with a million different motors in it and always making changes. And I raced. My race number was 618 because lots of other people already had 68. So I kept a rookie number, which just had a 1 in the middle.
Like, where did you race? Like, just with PCA or SCCA?
SCCA, PCA, POC. POC was my main focus. That was a real racers group. The only purpose of that club was driving. PCA has a social aspect, Concours, and let's go out and, have a barbecue and shit. To be honest, in the early days when I first had my 912, when I went to a PCA event, I didn't feel welcome. The only thing frowned upon more than that was a 914.
You're always going to kind of have that, though. I showed up in Danville, up in the Bay Area, and he's now the president. He was just the guy sitting next to me, and we were at a luncheon. I remember his wife just, here's your 911. 85. Oh, they're sitting here judging me. I'm like, okay, what do you have? A 2003 Boxster?
Yeah.
And this was like just a couple of years ago. So it's not like a 2003 Boxster is like anything to marvel at.
A Boxster really was a financially driven design in some ways, and a design driven by Kaizen, which is a Toyota production method that was accepted by Porsche as a means of becoming more profitable and eventually becoming an automated assembler of automobiles. As much as they will show you a commercial, hand-stitched and blah, blah. You know what? Automation is what keeps those places profitable with a limited workforce. I know about all that stuff. And I know what the challenges are, and I get it. The Boxster has 0.0 appeal for me. There's no way to change my mind. But the irony is that the car you have, a Carrera, shits all over a Boxster in my world. When they built the plant to build the Boxsters, I think I'm accurate on this. I remember, it's been a while, but I remember when they were building the plant in Leipzig or wherever that's at.
Yeah.
And there were warehouses there full of vintage parts, leftovers for 944s, 928s, some other 900 series cars. And Porsche put out a blotter to all the dealerships. If you guys want this stuff, it's available. Nobody spoke up. The thing was, at the time, if you weren't a dealership, you couldn't buy it. And Performance Products, the major supplier of Porsche parts and accessories, they overshadowed Porsche as an entity, especially here on the West Coast. But they had a huge mail order. I mean, that place was the bomb. And they made a bid for all that stuff. And Porsche, instead of taking the money and supporting the community, threw all that shit away. They just shredded it and threw it away. It was a travesty. And now we have Porsche Classic. God bless them. You know, I'm glad. I mean, in some ways it's a step, but I had Porsche Classic send a representative here the other day. Very nice guy. Real car guy. Actually better than most of the people I meet that work for Porsche right now. But he made it quite clear that we're in competition now. So it's okay. I'm going to be David. They can be Goliath. But it's kind of weird. In one hand, they're trying to help. But we're going to start restoring cars too. And you can't get a COA for a car unless it matches up to our standards. Well, I can't even perform that. You're going to have to take it to a Porsche Classic Center. It's been ramping up. I'm watching it happen. The puzzle pieces are all falling into place now. You know, I'm going to have to start having meetings with my guys. I'm saying, look, headhunters are going to start coming at you guys. Just let me know. I'll do what I can to keep you. See, to me, Porsche would have been better served by selecting independents like me and saying, look, here, let's make a deal. We have a program. You have to go to Porsche. You have to in order to become a Porsche authorized provider of service using Porsche Classic parts, blah, blah, blah. And ramp up in that way. You know, build the database, make it easy for me to order parts. Let's have a relationship that's mutually beneficial. Now it almost seems like they're like, well, you know, you had your run, but I have a feeling it's the other way around. I think I'm going to try to turn their rock into sand like I have everybody else that ever tried to get in my way.
How has your business changed or evolved, or any regrets?
The recipe for building a car is the same. The thing that's changed is integrating employees and building a culture that's lasting. At first, I believed that letting someone go was a failure. It was very painful because I'd never had to let anybody go, really. I mean, I let some people go in 2010 when the market had just really collapsed. 2010 was a rough year. So, but I really had to get a grip on letting go. That's been a major thing for me, letting go and learning the power of the word no. I love to say, yes, I can help you. But part of this growth experience has been learning how to let go, you know, because I really get attached to people. And even if they're not performing at a super high level, I was like, okay, well, we'll work it out. Over time, they're going to get better. You know, while they're here, this is the culture. Come on, man, you can do it. And some people can't. They need to be led in a certain way. So I've had to overcome that. And there's times when people are in here and they've been a customer for years and years and years. Here's the thing. If I mess up or I build something wrong or I don't get their expectation where they want it, I'll definitely will bend and we'll figure that out. As long as there's a dialogue and we can have an adult conversation, and there's no need to ramp up. It's just like, hey, John, can we do this? Or, hey, I was expecting this, but I got that. I'm totally about making it right. Because at the end of the day, we're building dreams, not cars. So some people, it's still an appliance. It's not their dream at all. It's just their car and they want it maintained and whatever. And that's okay too. Like if your whole world's about investment and getting something back on the backside, you're probably not a good fit for the shop. But if this is a dream you had, you put off in college, or it's your grandfather's car, or it's a car you rode by on your bicycle when you were a kid, and finally one day you're driving by with your wife and kids, and it's sitting out in the driveway instead of the garage, and oh my God, I got it. But it's been sitting for 30 years, and you're totally passionate, and you know it's going to cost a shitload of time and money, and we're on that wavelength, and you're not totally analyzing every nut, bolt, and washer for price, then we're a good fit. But if all you think about is, is this car's an investment, that's probably not the best fit for my shop.
Right. So what did you do prior to Porsche stuff? You were an engineer in the corporate world.
Yeah. So yeah, I was an engineer. I mean, I was facilities engineer, responsible for 3 plants in SoCal. And so I was a busy guy.
Did you start off doing everything on the Porsches, or you were just in main areas like engine or this, or did you start off just doing everything that needed to be done?
Everything. Because I did every car I ever bought. I did everything. I used to paint my own fucking cars. It's not a good business model. Once you turn loose and you want to have a business, you have to find people that do things that you would normally do the way you want them. So whether you subcontract or you hire people directly, you have to find people that you jive with. The shop's that way right now, which is a fucking blessing.
You became known at the track and such for beating 6 cylinders with your, not just a 4-cylinder, but reliable 4 cylinders.
Mm-hmm. I wasn't the first guy to race 4 cylinders, but I may be one of the first guys to build really nasty little 4 cylinders that held together for a while. Because when I first started building, I had mentors like Harry Pello and Dwayne Spencer, 2 completely different philosophies. Look, when somebody tells me you can't do that, or I don't know if that's possible, that's my cue to go fucking do it. I love doing that. A long time ago, again, somebody told me something stuck in my head and told me, your job in life is to make everybody a liar. I'm like, what are they talking about? It's like, if anybody ever calls you out and says you can't, or you're this, if they label you, they try to put you in a hole, make them a fucking liar. So I have these little credos, these little mantras that run in my head. There's a handful of them. That's one of them.
Okay. You do not go crazy with hot rodding. You have a sense of keeping with how Porsche would have done it. Do you agree with that, or do you disagree with that?
Okay, when you say hot rod, that's actually a good term. I absolutely like the hot rod shit. I'm not doing anything new. I'm using time-tested and true methods to make improvements, whether it's one of my motorcycles, my bicycle, my cars I build for people. But I like to honor the ideal, the dream that Porsche had. Add lightness, get the most out of the least.
Mm-hmm.
You have to remember that Porsche exists because of struggle, war, engineering philosophy, design philosophy. Germany arguably had some of the greatest artists, and that whole Bauhaus movement. Real artists don't have borders. They just have vision, and they share. They feed off of each other. It's the same for automotive. Growing up reading about Indy and the Millers and the Offenhausers, and then reading about Auto Union and the mega minds behind that, and how that blew up into what we have today. Arguably today, you look at an Audi, you look at a Volkswagen, you look at a Porsche, there's design elements that came out of that, and a culture that came out of that. At the same time, it's hard for a big corporation to have a soul. Just like, look, on a small level, I am a corporation. I'm a small corp, a little tiny, itty-bitty little corp. And like I was just telling you, it's so hard to get what's in my head out to the shop floor and keep the culture a certain way. Well, I can't imagine how strong your vision and your culture has to be to get that out onto the shop floor. And if it even exists. Like, does some guy putting a Porsche together actually give a rat's ass about what Porsche has? I'd love to know. I'd love to have beers with a guy that works at Porsche on the assembly line and really say, so do you really give a shit? Or is this a job? I mean, you applied. Did you go down to Porsche and apply for the job because, oh my God, Porsche? Like, I know there are people there.
It had to be like that in the past, it seemed like, but I don't know about now.
I don't know. I don't know if it exists. No, but really think about it. I worked for companies back in the day. Did I really give a shit about the culture? I did. It actually meant that I had a more romantic notion. Most of the other people there, they didn't give a shit. I felt like I owed an allegiance. And I want to feel like the people that work here feel that way too. Not necessarily allegiance to me, but allegiance to what's been built here and what we're trying to do. You know, getting back to your question, what was your fucking question, man? I'm totally losing it here.
Keeping the way Porsche is when you're hot
Okay,
rodding, not getting
So
too out of
I do
control.
feel an allegiance to Porsche as a brand and as a cultural icon for me. And that stems back to day one. So, but at the same time, I'm paying allegiance to other guys that have taught me what I know, gave me the ability to look at stuff and make some sense out of it and maybe put my spin on it. Because to me, that's all we're doing. You know, my brand is putting my spin on the world as I see it and making decisions based on what I know, what I've learned, the interaction I've had with people. But absolutely, I like to honor the brand, but make some changes, because I guess the point I was trying to make in my spiel a second ago was that a corporation has investors at that level. They have to turn a profit. They have to, you know, show it's a money-making enterprise. This business I have, that's not my main focus. I mean, I have to make money to pay the bills and at the end of the day, but if my main focus at Benton Performance was to just make money, it wouldn't be what it is right now. It'd be a whole different ballgame. I would hire and fire on the daily. I would really crush numbers all the time. And like, this is unacceptable. And it would be a different entity. And it's not what I want. I worked in that world. I don't want to be in that world. So I hope I'm answering your question, but I guess ultimately what I'm trying to say is, yes, I like to hot rod shit, but I like to honor both sides of the equation.
What was your most significant build or project?
Well, you know, I've never been given the opportunity by a client, and I've never had enough money to buy something that's epic, like a 904 or a 906. But I think the significant builds for me have been builds that have standed the test of time, that routinely go to Concours and win time after time after time. But I have to, but significance, like that have really maybe propelled me into an area where people are like, oh, I know that car.
Or maybe it's significant to you.
Well, for significant to me, there's probably two cars that are super significant in my life. The first being my 912, which is what really propelled me to this moment where you and I are having a conversation. Because had I bought a Jaguar that day, had I bought the 911 that day, had I stuck with Alphas because I really had an affinity for those for a while, we'd be having conversations different. Maybe I would have just stayed an engineer. You know, maybe I wouldn't have raced because it would have been too expensive to race the 911. But significance, my little 912 that I still have, that's a significant car that's always in a state of build, always being messed with. It's my little mule, my little experiment chamber, the car I brought my kids home from the hospital in.
I was brought home in the 928.
There you go. See? So we have these correlations that are kind of cool. They stick with you. It may seem stupid to some people that are like really like logical and sensible, and they don't even know what car they came home from. They don't give a shit. But for people like you and me, this is significance. That car was my family car, my only car. Then it became my race car. Then it became a Concours car. But it was always an expression of who I am and always an expression of what I was capable of. So very significant build. Client builds, probably the most significant build would be the La Carrera car. The 62 356B owned by Rob Curry. Bruce Brown, God bless him, suggested me to be involved in that car. And so his nephew brought it to me. And they really vetted. I mean, they brought an entourage, and they're looking at my shop and they're asking me questions. They really, really wanted to make sure they got what they wanted. And at the end of the day, I provided what they wanted. You know, I worked on it. And at the time I was by myself. So one of the hottest summers ever, and finished the car, and we went to Mexico and we won. And we won again and we won again. And we've had a couple of years where we podium, and someone we DNF'd in 2016. It was a heartbreaking experience for me and Rob, because he likes to win too. And I arguably built a piece of crap that year. It still bugs me. You know, I should have built it a little bit differently and it wouldn't have that outcome. But
what were your thoughts when long hoods went from like less desirable cars to where they took off?
Oh, finally.
Where did your love affair with the 912 come from? When really, at the time you got your 912, like, no one probably cared, right?
My exposure to 912 as a young dude, I told myself it's a great car. It's got everything I need. So as soon as I could get one, I got one. So it was just based on exposure, because even I had heard 912s are a Volkswagen. They're a poor man's Porsche. It's so untrue. That's just ignorance. It's ignorance. So being exposed to the car and understanding that it's totally capable of being a gentleman's touring car, a gentleman's sports car, a race car. I got it. I mean, like, fuck, I do whatever I want with this thing. Because at the time, I would drive my car early. I would drive to Willow Springs, race the shit out of my car, and then drive home. You know, most of the field had a trailer, different set of tires, all this shit. I didn't have that budget.
Was anybody else doing 912s when you got started?
Yeah, so there was a small group. Back then, it would have been Dwayne Spencer and Joe Vampola. They're out just doing the Sea of Cones, SCCA, whatever. They go down and just dominate their class against a lot of highly prepared cars. And I drew a lot of inspiration from that. I'm like, I love that. I'm a little guy. I got a chip on my shoulder. How better to express it than to go out in the canyons or to the track and just wail, you know, like drive the shit out of the car and then have guys walk up in the pits. Like, holy shit, what's in there? 1.7 liter. So much fun.
Okay, tell me about involvement in the La Carrera Panamerican.
Mm-hmm.
Why did you decide to do it?
I didn't decide to do it. A client did. And so it went from building the car to not only building the car, but supporting the car, which just grew out of necessity. You know, La Carrera is a mistress that just kicks your ass, but draws you back. That bitch, you know, man, fuck this. And then you have to go back.
So you won right out of the gate.
Yeah.
But it was not all parties and balloons.
No.
There was kind of a cloud over it because other race teams had resentment because they've been going, this is your first time out.
Well, it's not spoken. It's like anything else. Like, let's say you have an experience with a Carrera, right? And I'm sure maybe you've gone to a social event and you show up and you get a vibe. It's not a story you're making up in your head. I mean, people might say that, but there's times when you be amongst peers and you can tell there's like a vibe, like, fucker. When we went out the first time and we won, there's guys that have been doing this for a while and they don't share a whole lot. They're just kind of like, It's fun because it kind of ramps things up. They come back the next year and they're better prepared. But so are we. I'm not saying anybody's like angry, but you could just feel it. Like, those fucking guys, how did they do that? It's fun. Now there's a mutual respect that exists.
Thanks for joining us for today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, comment, like, and share with your friends. Feel free to send questions or suggestions to the email in the description of the show. Special thanks to our sponsor, Circuit 64. Goodbye for now. We hope we can get together again for our next episode. Now get out there and enjoy the cars and the people.